Hi guys, welcome. Today I bring you a review of the Insta360 Go 3. Now, I know this is a little bit different to my usual reviews. I normally do fitness equipment or trainers or something along those lines, but the action camera has always been present when I've done some of my adventures, my OCRs, my longer adventure runs and things like that. I've always taken cameras to record those races and events. It's super important that I do that, and it's certainly super important now I have a YouTube channel. So, historically I've always used the GoPro, and I've had 6 or 7 GoPros by now, and I trust them, right? I always go back to GoPro because I just love the simplicity of it. You press the top button, it records. But over time, they've got slightly bigger, they've got slightly heavier, and sometimes they crash and there's lots of little bugs and stuff. And I've finally now got a use case where I need something different. So that's where the Insta360 Go 3 comes in. And I've bought this with the very particular use of using it at things like high rocks, where size and weight and appearance are quite important to that equation. I can't justify taking one of these. I don't want to take one of these. They're too big, they're too obvious. So with that being said, I bought this for this key feature. The sort of lens component part pops clean out of the body and remains to be a functioning camera. All its memory and battery are in there. So it means instead of taking the big GoPro around like this and looking a bit like a GoPro guy, you know, there's quite a few of those. I am one of those. I can just take this little thing. It's much more subtle, and it can, you know, I've got a black one, so I can use a black headband and it would be less obvious even still. So that's the plan. I'm going to take this to my High Rocks doubles competition while I'm not working. I can be filming. I just need to become sort of savvy with how it works. There's obviously some key differences between this and this. Moving forward, I just need to become confident in the ability of the Insta360. Hi guys, welcome back. It has been 2 months since I filmed the introduction to this video, and 2 months since I took stock of my Insta360 Go 3 Black Edition. So, in that time, I have had plenty of opportunity to get out into the world and put it through its paces. I have tested it for the very reason that I bought it, which was an indoor fitness event I had coming up back in January. I've also put it through its paces at the gym, and in the horizon I have now got OCRs and running races and other things like that I'm going to put it through. But as of right now, after 2 months, I feel I have been able to come up with a decent list of things that I like and dislike about this particular camera. So, will this camera be good enough to replace the GoPro? The GoPro has been my go-to action camera for a long time. I trust it. I trust the brand. I trust the software. And despite having a few niggles about it, it's always come good. But my GoPro 10 is on its last legs, and it really does need replacing. Is the Insta360 Go 3, is this the camera to do it? By the end of this video, I will tell you. Okay guys, I am going to get straight into it. I'm going to tell you everything I like about this camera, followed by the things that I do not like about this camera. I'm going to keep the list concise to my use case. Now, if you remember, my use case is running, OCR, fitness events, things of that nature. With that in mind, I have compiled a list of pros and cons of this particular camera, always thinking back to the GoPro. Okay guys, let's get straight into what I like about this camera. And I'm going to start with the feature, the very reason why I bought it in the first place. And that is the detachable mini camera that sits inside, right? When this pops out, this camera continues to function as a full action camera all by itself. And you can leave this heavy bit behind. When it's out like this, it's at least about a third of a GoPro total size and weight. And when you wear it, it's so much less obvious, it's so much less to carry, and it doesn't bounce around at all. One of the great features about this in this particular mode is that it has a magnet right here on the back. That means you can stick it to anything that is steel or iron. And I use this particular camera in a gym all the time, and there's loads of metal surfaces in there, everything from the sort of power racks right down to the kettlebells. I can literally stick it to anything, and it's so subtle when you're recording. There's no glowing screen, there's no silly tripod. I literally stick it, record what I need to, turn the camera on, and away I go. It's absolutely fantastic in this respect. Let's talk about stabilization. All cameras and all imaging devices over the last 5 or 10 years have gone through an amazing amount of improvements with regards to stabilization. It means that you no longer need a gimbal. The stabilization on the Insta Go 3 is actually really very good. The best example I can find in all of the footage that I've recorded so far is something as simple as just straightforward running. Now, in the example I'm going to show you, I did a park run, a 20-minute park run, and I was doing quite well. In fact, I came third on the day. So I had this on my head and I just ran like I would normally. I recorded the entire thing, and the stabilization took out all of the running bounces. Now, it doesn't have horizon lock, and the bounce is still there very slightly, but bearing in mind it's dealing with all of the various movements that my head and my body is going through when I'm running. I'm talking high cadence, high speed, lots of head movement, lots of body movement, and it smoothed it all out brilliantly. Like I said, no horizon lock. That would be a great feature for the, say, the Go 4, but I have absolutely no complaints about the stabilization on this little camera. One of the biggest differences from going from the GoPro to the Insta is the interface on the display, right? Or how you configure the camera, how you preview the footage, everything is done through this little interface. Now, at first, it feels very alien when you've used one type of interface for such a long time, but I am happy to say that it is intuitive enough and straightforward enough to pick it up, almost everything about it, really very quickly. There's nothing worse than getting a camera that's so complicated that you never truly figure out how it works. But this one is actually really very simple to use. Now, one of the great features about this camera is the screen, right? This fold out screen. Not only is it a great feature to be able to sort of present directly to the camera with a screen you can see, which is great for this sort of thing like vlogging and recording yourself, but when the camera is detached, it still streams that footage to the camera. I think that's actually amazing. There is a slight lag between this and this, like a second maybe, but it is noticeable when you're looking at it. But that doesn't detract from the fact that you can set this up over here and check the framing over here. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the limitations of this camera. They're not downsides, they're not negatives, they're not cons. They are things that I was completely aware of before I bought this device. Let's firstly talk about the removable media question. Does it where do you put your SD cards and stuff? Well, let's just stop right there. This doesn't have any of that. It goes back to a time where you plug a cable in, or you connect it to your phone and you download the footage that way. I knew this before I bought it, and when you actually do buy it, you can buy it in a number of storage capacities. So you can have the 32GB version, or the 64GB version, or the 128GB version. The one I've got here, the 64GB version, gives me well over 2.5 hours of record time at the highest resolution, and that is more than enough for me. The next limitation is this device in this format is not waterproof. Okay, the body, this bit, the bit with the hole and the bit with the screen, is not designed to get wet. I think it has a splash rating, but that's it. The idea is that you keep this well out of harm's way. This bit, on the other hand, is fully waterproof. You can take this anywhere down to 4 or 5 meters of depth. That's completely fine. I've not yet done that. I have an OCR coming up, so I will test it there. But yeah, you can't take this bit in. The next limitation is when you come to download footage, you need this part. You can't download the footage from this by itself. So it has to go in here, and you either then use your phone or the wire to download the footage. It's just one of those things. You accept it for what it is. The battery life on this component and the pod itself is only about 40 to 45 minutes. Obviously you would get more out of a GoPro, but at the same time it is only a third of the size. Now what's actually really quite good, and that's why this particular feature is in the halfway house on my review, is that once you say, if you use this device completely, if you used all the battery up, you simply pop it back into here and it starts to charge from a second battery in the camera housing. So potentially you can then let it charge itself completely up and then take it out again. You don't need to plug it in. It will just simply siphon off extra battery juice from this. Okay, so the next limitation of this camera is the resolution. My GoPro can do 4K and beyond, but this is stuck at 2.7K. Now, historically, I've always recorded the footage on the GoPro at 2.7 at 50 frames a second, simply for editing and storage reasons. It takes a lot of space or a lot of processing power to edit and pop out 4K videos all of the time. So I generally record at 2.7 and then just upscale it in edit if I need it at 4K. If it's something particularly special, I might pop it up to 4K, but for the most part 2.7 seems okay. That is the maximum recording for these types of cameras. 2.7K is it, I'm afraid. Let's talk about the things that I dislike about this camera, the cons. I'm going to start with the biggest one, and the one that if I'd known about it before I bought it, I might not have bought this camera at all. I bought this camera watching trailers like this, where everything looked perfect quality, sharp, brilliant, right? And that is true as long as there is ample light. In perfect sunny conditions, it can stand toe to toe with the GoPro all day long in terms of quality, right? The second that light is much less available, we're talking everything from sort of overcast down to dark, that sort of bottom half, it starts to struggle. And this was really even obvious when I was just passing through shady trees. Like literally, it was middle of the day, shaded area of trees, and I was noticing a pixelization, like square artifacts appearing in the video. And after quite a bit of research online, there are things you can do to help with this. But should you have to go through life constantly dipping in and out of the settings to adjust it to every single different situation that you're dealing with? I don't think you should. I think the cameras these days should be intelligent enough to detect what is happening in front of it and adjust the settings to the best possible version so you get the best possible footage. I just don't think the camera is quite there yet on the quality and low light stuff. It's a real shame because there are times when I have been trying to record something in lower light and have then been bitterly disappointed with what it's produced. In addition to the low light problems, there are stabilization problems in low light also. And this comes in the form of jitter. The camera is constantly trying to digitally stabilize itself, and in good light, it does a fantastic job of this. The problem comes when it is shifting in and out of shade, in and out of light, and in and out of areas of brightness and darkness. It struggles because it is trying to dynamically adjust the color temperature of the environment, the color profile, as well as trying to digitally stabilize itself. How this problem then manifests in the footage is it jitters. It can't do all of this at once. And there are ways, through research online and other YouTube channels that delve deeper into this sort of thing, there are ways, if you go into the manual settings, that if you flatten the color profile and you select the white balance manually as something medium, that it gets rid of a lot of this jittering and some of these artifacts. It reduces a lot of these problems right down. But again, why should you have to go into the settings every single time, meddle with these before stepping into a different type of scenario, a different type of light? You shouldn't. The camera should be able to do it. So at the beginning of this video, I said, could I replace the GoPro with the Insta 3? Now, I am struggling with this one a little bit because of a bit of brand loyalty and reliability in terms of I've used this a lot. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm getting. And from a spec perspective, this still provides better quality footage and resolution and image quality. But I cannot ignore the innovations in this camera. Having a camera that is this small and this useful and this functional with sort of the creative potential behind it is amazing. And I feel that I have only just scratched the surface of what this camera can provide. I'm sure with a little bit of time, the bugs that are in this camera will likely be fixed, certainly in the next version, the next iteration of this camera, at which point it will be a no-brainer. It really will be a no-brainer. In terms of which camera I'm going to be using for the foreseeable future, it's going to be the Go 3. If I find more shortcomings, I might lean back towards the GoPro, but for now I'm going to let this prove itself out there in real events, in the real world, in real scenarios for me. So that's this review done. I told you that the pros and cons, the things that I liked and disliked or were indifferent about, would be kept specific to what I got this camera for. I would not be going into every single facet of the settings or the uses. Everything is related to my use case. Now, obviously, this is a camera that is going through an iterative release. So every year or every 2 years, there is a new version available, a lot like what happens with the GoPro. So they are on version 12, moving into 13 soon. So, and this is only on version 3. I suspect a lot of the light problems and the resolution and the expandable media and the waterproofness, a lot of this will be addressed in the next version. But how long do you wait? How long do you wait before you actually commit and buy one of these things, before all of these problems are fixed? Who knows? You could be waiting forever. Anyway, I'm going to be taking this camera out onto a variety of other adventures coming soon. So if you would like to see how they go, please give the channel a subscribe. Thank you for watching this review, and I will see you in my next video soon. Mart out.